here's a film that once it's available, you certainly need to check out. Folks, let's jump into my review of the new film, The Elderly. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the film The Elderly, which made its US premiere at this year's Fantastic Fest 2022. So I enjoyed this film a lot, and the reason why I enjoyed this film a lot is because it did sort of really compile a lot of good things that really made this horror film work. First off, before I even talk about any of that and even talk about what's happening in the film, I want to say that this film truly established the world that I would love to see a sequel. I think within the last 15 to 20 minutes, a couple of light bulbs started going off in my head like, oh, they actually could do this, and that. And I would love to kind of see this really drawn out a lot more, because I think they had some really good ideas. I had some ideas of my own or possibilities, and I would love to see this fleshed out into at least another sequel of sorts, because I really love the world that that they sort of established in this film and the possibilities of what they can do going forward. So I just wanted to make sure I threw that out there right away. But this film did compile a lot of good things. One, yeah, in terms of the horror, you got this supernatural element to it, which is completely creepy. When you talk about the atmosphere, is completely eerie at times. Like, they do a lot of good things that you kind of like in terms of like a haunted house type of horror film. But then also it tackles something that I think we all can relate to, and that's sort of the surrealism within this film, because the film The Elderly definitely explores the ideas and the fears of getting older, aging, and the rejection of aged bodies, because there's a couple of different things here. First of all, there is a lot of naked senior citizens in this film, so just gotta accept that, you know. But also you have to think about that, like, you get older and, you know, it's the gray hair, then it's the wrinkles, and then it's the aches and pains, and then all of a sudden you start to have a lot of insecurities because you're getting older, and, you know, that's a real fear. And then beyond that, talk about your statue and your position in the family. Maybe once you was the primary, provider, but now you have to be taken care of. And then what if your family can't take care of you, so they have to put you in the senior home? I mean, these are all real things. But then there's another element to this, and whether you experience this or not, I think at some point somebody has thought about the fear of, you know, having dementia or Alzheimer's. And I think that when either you're in the care of somebody, and if you've definitely been in the care of somebody, you know how extreme that can be, and it's completely a scary yet alarming experience. But also it's the idea of, what if you woke up and you lost your memory, or you had to start second guessing things, or you woke up and you didn't know where you were at. I mean, all these things are truly things that I think at some point adds a layer of fear to someone's life, and that this film definitely ingest all of those different things, because yeah, it's certainly a thing. But even before that, the beginning of the film, the grandmother, who's the anchor of this family, she commits suicide. So imagine losing your loved one that you've known your entire life in that grieving process. But her suicide sort of felt like it was sort of a sacrifice of sorts. But beyond that, Manuel, who is her husband, who's the grandfather of the family, losing his wife completely, not only did this shred the family apart, but this sent Manuel down a path that has become very challenging to the family, because now he's showing signs of dementia. He's talking to himself, he's confused, sometimes he's violent, and he needs a caretaker. And of course his son Mario's kind of like, I'm not putting my son in the senior home, but his wife is like, hey, we cannot do this. This is creating a very difficult dynamic in our household, and we just can't. And not to mention their daughter Naya, who is also starting to become very independent in her own, and also a little bit of a challenge. You know, that age where, you know, kids think they're adults and whatnot, like that sort of thing kind of going on. So there's a lot of pressure going on within this household. And, you know, when you talk about Manuel, he thinks he's communicating with his wife still. He has like a radio. Let me make this very clear. he inserts a radio into himself, sort of like an implant in terms of communicating. And then he's doing all these really creepy and eerie things. I mean, sometimes he's violent, sometimes he's confused, sometimes he's emotional. You have to keep an eye out on him because he's so unpredictable. Yet he's sending threats saying, hey, grandma's coming back. And it's like very foreshadowing of something to come. And then if all of this wasn't bad, then there's a heat wave going on in Madrid that's absolutely becoming problematic for everybody, especially the seniors. So you're having not only Manuel showing signs of something's going wrong, you have all these other seniors in this whole in the whole city also doing so. So it's like one thing after the next, and it's just a lot going on right now, and this is creating a lot of stress and tension within this household. So with that being said, you know, there was a bit of atmospheric horror in this, but then things really start to build and get suspicious and eerie. And, you know, it never gets to a point where it just gets to a top and kind of combust. It just kind of keeps you on edge as things slowly build in this film. And I think that when you see Manuel's action really starting to shred the family apart, it makes this film so unpredictable because you really don't know what's going to go next. And you know, and then it's the conflict of like, do we let our dad go into a senior home and rot? Or do we let the granddaughter Naya, who says they can take care of him, let them do it? And then the mom and dad trying to figure out like, what do they do here? And also not wanting to split because this is causing major friction between the two of them. I mean, I'm gonna just say what it is. Manuel was even violent towards her, and that was like enough for her. You know, she could not deal with it no more. So, you know, it's a lot of different things to kind of put into perspective here. Not to mention, in all due respect, the seniors are acting like animals because their actions are sort of reactions to something that is going to occur in nature. It's like they can sense something's happening. So these weird occurrences from these seniors is all because they can sense that something almost apocalyptic is going to happen. So it's really it's a very intense story. An electrical storm, which is causing this global phenomenon. Like there's a lot of different things that are happening here. But one thing I do want to say in terms of the production, the final act of this film, the visuals look very cool. And I thought the acting never was something truly special, but I just think that like it was enough to really make you focus on the granular event outside of what's happening with these characters. And there were some things that I thought was just a little bit kind of wonky, like I could have probably did without, but I understand that like they were sort of building this world, which is why I said that like I think that there's something here for them to really build upon, to really tell another story, a sequel of sorts beyond this, because they really established a lot of different things that make this world work. And obviously with something kind of foreshadowing towards the end of this film, something sort of apocalyptic, you know, it just seems the possibility of what they can do going forward. And I think that, you know, understanding the beginning of the suicide and what was the whole purpose of that. I mean, there obviously was an arc in there and its own with that. So now that we have an answer for that, what was it all for? And that's something else I would kind of love to explore. So like this film did it did a lot of things, you know. I don't think, you know, in terms of like the acting, nothing was like really extraordinary. I thought everything was very everything served its purpose, and the world they built I thought was excellent. So the story was good, and then the horror elements, I mean, just adding all these different sort of aspects into one film, I thought was done very brilliantly, and kept me on edge the entire time. And I felt like this felt like a origin story, a world building story for things to come, because it established so many different things. Like I was saying, it started to build like this atmospheric horror, but then it started to get suspicious and things started to get eerie, but never anything got over the top. It was just like enough to introduce that these are the possibilities, and then they just kind of left it at that. So there's a lot of different things kind of going on in this film. There's a little bit of gore, definitely some blood splatter, some very violent moments, whether it's feeling a little bit supernatural or very surreal. Like, they tackle all of that. And I certainly think this is a film worth watching. I enjoyed this film a lot. So, hey, Totally keep your eyes out for the release of The Elderly. And once you check it out, folks, jump in the comments, let me know your thoughts about this. And as always, stay tuned for more reviews very soon.
Big old bell,